The Jacksonville Jaguars have a quarterback that turns the ball over too much, and the coach says he has to fix it. I'll explain all of that today here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. By the way, my name is Tony Wiggins. Make sure you head over to the Locked On Jaguars YouTube page and subscribe for free. Make sure you hit the like button and then hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, wherever you get your audio podcast, please make sure you check in every single day to make sure you don't miss an episode. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, shout out to the everydayers for joining us every single day, making sure to never miss an episode. That's why you're an everydayer. And you can be an everydayer too. All you got to do is do the same thing. All right. A lot of Senior Bowl talk, a lot of draft talk, they got to pick 5 offensive linemen with their first 5 picks and sign 3 more in free agency. We get it. The reason why we are all going through that is because, 1, you saw the offensive line get pushed around a lot, but 2, it's because you believe you have a franchise quarterback that needs to be protected in Trevor Lawrence. It should have been the mission from day one, but now it's really the mission to make sure Trevor is upright and give him the best possible chance to have success. We know that. That's what it is. However, for Trevor Lawrence himself, he has to stop turning the ball over. Now, I know we're going to talk about all of these turnovers, and there will be people that say, well, he doesn't really have this problem. He doesn't really have that problem. And one of the reasons why it's that way is because he doesn't have a line to protect him. Another reason is because people drop passes. Guys don't know the offense. They're going the wrong way. Some of those are tip passes. Some of them are Hail Marys. Some are miscommunications between him and the receiver. All of them aren't his fault. So he has 39 picks and 33 fumbles. That's 72. He's missed 1 game. So he played 16 this year. He played 19 the year before and 17 the year before that. So let me do my Duval County math real quick. So it's 16 before they went to a 17-game season. I believe in 2021, they only had 16 games. He played 17 plus 2 playoff games. That's 19. That's 35. Y'all seeing me do this in real time. That's 35. He missed 1 game this year. So 35 plus 16 is 51. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That's 51. He has 72 turnovers in 51 games. Nobody else in football since Trevor Lawrence has been in the league has as many turnovers as Trevor Lawrence. We can make build in excuses and talk about all the different scenarios all we want to. Well, let me tell you something. All of those scenarios, other quarterbacks have drop passes. Other quarterbacks have miscommunication. Other quarterbacks throw Hail Marys at the end of the first half. All of that. That's factored in for everybody. But yet still, Trevor Lawrence leads the league in turnovers since he's been in the league. There ain't nothing wrong with saying he has to stop. And anybody who wants to defend that, what are you talking about? He has to stop. You can't lead the league in those bad categories. He ain't the first person to play behind a bad offensive line, and he won't be the last. He's not the first person to have no real good receivers his first year. He won't be the last one. There are a lot of people that have had issues and that have had things that are going on with the team. That means you have to stop. So Doug Pederson, I saw an article a little while ago. I was going to do my show on something else, but I was like, woo, this one fell right into my lap. He does. Now, folks might say, Well, Doug has some things he needs to do. Why don't Doug worry about press? Because Doug's the head coach, and Doug Pederson is supposed to worry about this stuff. But Doug Pederson also has said this at a number of press conferences I've attended and some that I didn't, that Trevor has to protect the football. I'm going to read you the quote, if that helps a little bit. So this is on Pro Football Talk, so take it for whatever it's worth. I'm going to read it for you verbatim. 3 years after he was the first pick in the NFL draft, Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence is still making too many rookie mistakes. Lawrence has thrown 39 interceptions and fumbled 33 times in his 3-year career. And Doug Pederson says that's where Lawrence has to get better. Here's the quote. It's the biggest thing that he has to focus on moving forward. We just can't have this amount of turnovers. How we turn the ball over, where we turn the ball over, it doesn't matter. We've got to protect the football. That's the number one thing. For the quarterback, the person that touched the ball every snap, we have to make sure the emphasis is taking care of the ball. Coming out of Clemson, Lawrence was viewed as an elite quarterback. This ain't no quote. Coming out of Clemson, Lawrence was viewed as an elite quarterback prospect, one of the best ever in the NFL. He hasn't lived up to that height, and the Jaguars need him to get better. I'll take issue with only one thing Doug says. I understand when Doug Pederson says it does not matter where you turn the ball over. It doesn't matter where you turn the ball over. I get it, because if you turn it over when you're about to score, or if you turn it over deep inside your own territory, that's bad. It's really, I think the second one is actually worse, when you turn it over in your own territory. The issue is, for me, the reason why I put so much emphasis on the turnovers that happen when they cross the 37-yard line of the other team is because on a weekly basis, I have sat and right before a game or done a podcast right before a game, and I told people, I want you to watch something. I want you to watch how many times they get to the 37-yard line. The reason why I say 37, because at that time, Brandon McManus was banging 54-yard field goals like it wasn't nothing, like it was a layup. And I tell people, count how many times, and I really did this on the Monday night game when they played Cincinnati. Count how many times they get to the 37-yard line and how many times they walk away without points. Now, this is for a number of reasons. Missed field goals, Doug Pederson going for it, being aggressive, people fumbling, Trevor making mistakes, turning over on downs, whatever. In the game against Cincinnati at halftime, they had turned over. This is a game that they lost in overtime this year at home. By the way, the same game that somebody on the Jaguars team said the fans were so loud they couldn't hear the signals and they couldn't communicate. So I guess we were supposed to shut up. But in any event, they got across. They got to the 37 or beyond 4 times in the first half, and they went into the locker room with a donut hole for points. 0. When you can point something out and tell you exactly how it's going to go, and it goes like that, well, you're not just throwing stuff into the wind and hoping something sticks. That means you are pretty much dead on as to their problem. And they did that often last year. And then when folks wanted to always blame play calling and those things on that, I was like, well, what play calling got to do with dropping the ball? If it's the wrong play, just don't do it. Just, you're already in scoring range, right? Whether you drop it, whether you fumble it, whether you pass it, the bottom line is it does not matter. He leads the league in turnovers, and that's not the category that when the Jaguars drafted Trevor Lawrence, that's not the category that we thought he would be leading the league in. And it's not something that sets up for a lot of success moving forward. He has to make it a priority to make sure he doesn't do that. Can he stop it? Is it just in his nature? And if you handicap him too much and take too much off of his plate, does that not allow you to use all of his talent, his great talent? I'll tell you why all of that is a bunch of hogwash in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars on this beautiful day here in North Florida. Man, it's so nice outside. I don't know what to do. But I'm going to answer those questions. I'm going to tell you exactly why I believe that a lot of that is a bunch of much to do about nothing. I'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Got to let you know again about today's sponsor, and it's LinkedIn Talent Solutions. That's right. LinkedIn Jobs, man. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll make my business and take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. I hope the Jaguars are listening. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And I have to let you know also about DoorDash. This is a very, very important thing to me, man. DoorDash is the absolute truth. I moved to a new neighborhood, right? And so on everybody's maps, we weren't on the map because nobody knew how to get to my house, right? These people that had their own restaurants that deliver in the neighborhood. You can get rid of all of that foolishness with DoorDash. DoorDash has a map to everything. DoorDash will find anybody and they will know exactly how to get to your house, and your food will be hot when you get there. Trust me. It is the greatest thing you can do, whether it's order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, or even anything that you want to eat from your local establishments, just your neighborhood stuff, or even the big chain stores. DoorDash is the place to go. All right, so get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Subject to change. That's LOCK23 on your first order. You get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. LOCK23, subject to change, terms, they apply. All right, locking it down here. Segment 2, Locked On Jaguars, talking about Trevor and turnovers. And whether or not it's just going to be a permanent part of his repertoire, something that you just have to put up with. Brett Favre was an interception machine. I think Brett Favre retired leading NFL history in interceptions. In fact, Google is my friend, and I'm on all-time NFL interception leaders, interception throwers. I'm going to pull this up and tell you right now whether or not Brett Favre is still he's he's number one. 336 interceptions. The next guy is Eli Manning. I'm sorry, the next guy is George Blanda, then George Hadle, then Vinny Testaverde. Nobody else has 300. Favre has 336. Jeez, that's a lot. Peyton Manning has 251. Dan Marino 252. Let me see if are there any quarterbacks on this list that are like still playing? No, Drew Brees. Tom Brady has 212. I'm trying to see. No, there's like nobody on this list that is currently, at least in the top, that are currently still playing. Matthew Stafford is 43rd. He's the highest active guy. Joe Flacco is 61st with 155. Matthew Stafford has 180. And Stafford has played a whole bunch of years, man. Matthew Stafford has played in the league since 2009 to 23. That's 14. So let's just say that Trevor Lawrence has 11 interceptions a year. He has 39. So that'd be 13 per year over 10 years. That'll be 130. If you add 4 more years where it's 14, let me see how he would do. All right, that's 52. So 130, that'll be 182. So he'd be sitting at 182. And Matthew Stafford's at 180 right now. So if he played the same amount of time that Matthew Stafford played, the same amount of games, and I don't really sit here and consider Matthew Stafford to be somebody that I would characterize as a dude in his entire career that was like an interception machine. Brett Favre was an interception machine, but it was a lot of stuff that went along with it, and he did a lot of good things too, right? But with Trevor Lawrence, you hope it gets better. You hope it improves based on some of the things that you've seen from him. You've seen him make the incredible, difficult throws and passes. You've seen Trevor Lawrence do that. The thing that I'll tell you to warn you against is sometimes these things actually never get better. Jameis Winston, if he ever gets another chance, it's going to be people hoping that if Jameis fixed that part of his game, Jameis would be an all-pro. But that's why you don't see Jameis getting another opportunity to be a real deal full-time starter. Like, I think Jameis would fit perfectly in Pittsburgh, where they really want to run the ball with a lot of play action. And a lot of times you throwing the ball to those cats, they're wide open because they usually do a pretty good job of employing 3 and 4 receiver sets. So the thing is Trevor Lawrence is not going to like set a record for turnover for interceptions. The problem with me is it is enhanced in a negative way by the fact that he's also fumbling the ball a lot. 33 fumbles is a lot. 72 turnovers in 51 games is a bunch. It's about 1.5, right? It's 1.5 a game. In order for him to go, and then if you go through and take all the games away where he didn't have a turnover, then that means that the games where he did have a turnover, they actually went up. It probably over 2 per game. So, and I know that's not how it works. The thing is can he fix it? Sure, he can fix it. You can help him fix it too by getting a more stout line, but that's not an excuse for some of the interceptions and some of the fumbles that I've seen him have. That's what's called elevating your team. Like, even when you don't have everything that you possibly need, even when you don't have the receivers, when you don't, just think about it. The last 2 years, they were 9-8, right? 9-8. I think if this year, there's a lot of things that you can say about this year, like if they did this or did that differently, where Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars would have been in the playoffs. Yeah, sure. There's a few things. But I know for a fact if he doesn't turn the ball over as much as he does, the Jaguars probably win an extra couple of games and they're in the playoffs still. Now, being in the playoffs can mask a whole bunch of stuff because once you make it, especially if you're a team like Jacksonville that hasn't made it very often, but once you have done that 2 years in a row, it seems like you're not really doing stuff that should have a whole bunch of people up in arms and wanting folks to get fired, right? But do you honestly think, and this is what I try to tell people about the defensive coordinator firings, do you honestly think that if they won that last game and made the playoffs, the Jaguars would have kept those defensive coaches? This isn't about one game, but it came down to one game. It came down to them not making the playoffs. If changes needed to happen, they needed to happen, whether they went up there and beat Tennessee or not. But in this league, that's not the way it works. You win that one game, you're going to stick with those coaches that obviously you believe aren't good enough right now. That may have been the case. So those 1 or 2 turnovers or inopportune mistakes that people make, the times you don't score in a close game when you get down there, that all means something. And we need to get out of this thinking that every little thing doesn't matter. Every little thing really does matter. It absolutely matters. 72 turnovers in 3 years by one player is a bit much. That's 24 times a year on average. 24 times a year on average, you turn the ball over. That's just too much for one player, man. That's just too much, especially the guy that you want to be your franchise quarterback. That is something that he has to clean up. I don't think Doug said this. Doug said, somebody asked him about taking some stuff off his plate. He said, why would you want to do that? He's your quarterback. And that's the problem that I have. The things that they need to take off of his plate are the non-football things, I think, like having to, and they stopped this, but just let him be a kid. Don't be involving him in all of these things that you should be doing for him. You got to set that table for him, man. And you got to make his bed and you got to protect him. You got to insulate him so that he could be at his absolute best. But Doug even smirked when somebody was suggesting that it's too much. The same people that ask questions like that are also the people that'll fight you if you say he's not generational. So you know who you don't have to babysit and pull stuff off of their plate? Generational players. In fact, they're at their best when you give them more stuff because generational people in any shape or form or any players in any way, you know what they want? They want all of that smoke because they want to show you just how great they are. So it's really a self-ratio and a self-own when you want to fight somebody that tells you that Trevor isn't generational. But at the same time, you ask the coach a question saying, are you putting too much on his plate? It's an oxymoron. That's like having a dude that scores 35 points a game and you say you don't want him to be the guy taking the shot and initiating the offense. That's silly. Why wouldn't you want him to do that? Why wouldn't you want Babe Ruth to bat third or fourth if you think a guy is Babe Ruth? Right? Right. So just to clear that up, here's what we're going to do. 72 turnovers is a bit much. You can help him. I'll tell you ways that they could help him. And that's by getting a better offensive line. But it is something that is absolutely driving me crazy about this draft process and this whole offseason journey. I'm going to tell you exactly what that is in just 1 second here on Locked On Jaguars. First, I got to let you know about Prize Picks, which is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of players, including pros and sharks. You make more than or less than projections on 2 to 6 player stats, and guess what? All the winnings will roll in if you get them right. You can even do a flex if you put enough 5, I think you get up to 5 or 6. If you get that high, you can either flex it and still win some money, even if you don't get them all right. But the best thing to do is get them all right, and then you could get all of that Skrilla put right in your pocket. Hey, man, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. I'll say it again. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use, in all lowercase, the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the truth, man. Y'all get on that. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. I'd be remiss if I didn't give you this information. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, so we all know that Trevor Lawrence needs bodyguards. He needs some interior muscle. You can tell I've been watching The Wire and watching The Sopranos. I'm using words like muscle, right? He needs muscle. He needs bodyguards. He needs protectors. And they need to get several of them, maybe 3, at a minimum 2, and then maybe 1 or 2 developmental guys also for depth so that they never find themselves in this position again or where they're so porous on the offensive line. I get all of that. I get that it is the number one priority for the team from a personnel standpoint to get more physical and bigger. And this is going to help him stop those turnovers. But for the life of me, I cannot understand. And I know some people say it in jest. Some people say it like they're shooting from the hip. Some people are joking and it's trolling. But there are people that says that the Jaguars should sign 3 free agent offensive linemen, and then their first 3 draft picks should be offensive linemen as well. And I want those people to know that life doesn't work that way. That is not how team building goes. This is not something that this is just not something you do. You don't go one position at a time and then ignore the rest of your team. Give you a reason why you don't do anything like that. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. This time last year, everybody was talking about pass rushers, edge rushers, edge rushers, edge rushers. You need edge. You need edge. They were talking about giving elite money to these big time edge rushers out here, right? Knowing the Jaguars didn't have a whole bunch of salary cap space, knowing the Jaguars had just used the number 1 overall pick on Trayvon Walker, and knowing that they had a guy named Josh Allen on their team who's going to make some money and was going to try to make him some money by playing his way into a better contract. And that's exactly what he did with 17.5 sacks. Have you noticed Trent never really addressed that? He didn't. But what happened is people still remembered how they felt about that. And he was asked that question. This is after they had 27.5 sacks from 2 people. Do they need depth? Yes. Are people making it the priority, need to be happening, do all? Please hurry up. We need this. Oh my, like they did last year. No, They're doing that to another position right now, which is the offensive line. The one that I kept begging them for 2 years, including last offseason, to address. More. They didn't. I know that the reason you want to do that is because the more dominant you are on the offensive line, sometimes the other guys like Trevor don't have to be great. In order to win games, you can turn and look at those guys and say, get us home. When you have a dominant offensive line, a lot can go your way when other things aren't going your way. So for me, I find it funny that some of the same people are now that were all over rush, which has never been addressed after they started that because Trayvon and Josh were already on the team, are now saying, well, you just need a depth guy. No, that's not what you said. Last year, we needed we needed Daniil Hunter. Remember? That's a superstar. That's an all-pro level player. Well, now they've changed. Now we need 7 offensive linemen. This is not how this goes, man. I don't know why people think that the draft starts and stops at pick number 17. Like if they don't take the number one priority at that spot, then you're just what a lot of people want Jackson Powers Johnson, the center. I like the kid too. But going into free agency, if you don't address the center position and then you think, okay, we're just going to draft him and somebody at number 14 or 15 snatches him, now what do? If you're banking all of that on a player that didn't even get to you, what do? You go in the corner and cry? No. I think what they need to do is address it in free agency because I don't think that you can take time to have a guy. And a center can come in and play well right away. I think if you go get James from Oakland or not Oakland, Las Vegas, or Cushenberry the second or the third from Denver, competent, professional, you ain't going to have to pay a whole bunch of stupid money for him, but you know exactly what you're getting. And he's a guy that's going to fight and he's going to help you get better. Then you'll be set. If you also address the right guard position or the right tackle position in free agency, which I don't think that there are a whole bunch of right tackles, but you can address center and guard. And then you can come back if you so see fit at pick number 17, assuming that you move Anton Harrison over to left tackle. Wait until you see what is there. What happens if a player that you had as a top 10 prospect falls and looks you dead in your face at another position of need? Now, remember, if you address the offensive line with 2 players in free agency, it's still important that you finish. You ain't done yet. Or could you just say, you know what, we'll give Walker Little another try at right tackle. Leave Anton at left. We could get us a guard that we can plug and play on day 2. But right now, this receiver, this big receiver that's going to help us score touchdowns, or this corner that's going to stop the other people from scoring touchdowns, he is sitting right there looking at us in the face. And the guard that we like, we think we can get him in round 2. And we're going to take a chance. We might even move up to make sure that that we don't get usurped again by somebody jumping in front of us. But maybe there's 5 or 6 guys that we like, but we have placed the value. And this is the most important part when you start saying what we need to do at 17. You better look at your value board and you better look at who's gone. Because at some point, no matter if you're filling squares or not, you got to play guys you don't pick. So if you take a lesser player because he fills a square, that lesser player who fills that square for you probably still ain't as good as the dude you passed up. And what if it's somebody he has to block? That's the point that I keep trying to make. You have to follow your value board and hope like hell that your value board and team need line up like an eclipse, and it's perfect. That's why you don't go into a preconceived, you don't go in there preconceived saying, I don't care what happens. This is the position we taking at 17. I don't give a damn what happens. You can't do that unless you see and know what's there when you get there. You can guess, but you never know what's there. You have to wait. I don't believe in going into this with any kind of formula other than taking the best player available. And if the best player available doesn't necessarily line up with something that I need, I'm bailing and I'm getting more picks so I can actually draft more people that I need, and I can hit it with a whole bunch of quantity that is also quality, as opposed to just taking a guy because he fills in a slot. And even though he's a decent, good player, he ain't better than 5 guys that were picked right behind him. So the way I look at it is, you got the 6th best player of all of those 6 guys, and you were picking first. It doesn't make sense. And I want folks to start trying to make sense when they think about this. But Trevor does need help. The offensive line is the number one priority, but it might not be the first thing they get. In fact, if you're talking about the 17th pick overall, it ain't going to be the first thing that they address, because free agency comes 2 months before the draft. You're doing draft eval, but you're window shopping. It's not going to be the first place you get to pick. And if you address that in free agency with proven players, then by the time you get to the draft, it's not as big of a priority. That's all I'm telling you. I wish we could just get on the same page with that. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence needs to clean up. Doug is right. Anybody that makes excuses for Trevor when it comes to the turnover, I'm sorry. I'm just not with you. But it is the absolute truth. Y'all, the absolute truth too. Make sure you keep joining me here on Locked On Jaguars every single day, where it's your team every day, and we'll see you next time.